Why, hello there. A Knife Tale here. I hope this video finds you well, and after a few days of craziness on my end and not being able to get videos done, I'm hoping we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. And I hope people will continue to tune in and subscribe and like and comment and engage. I want to hopefully see what I can take this channel to, and I would like to make content that you all want to watch, and I appreciate anybody's input and help and all that sort of thing. And I also want to say thank you to my current subscribers for having subscribed in the first place. Very much thank you. Just figured that would be a nice way to come back to things. So, another nice way to come back to things is doing a review of the Spyderco PM2. I know, what am I talking about? How could I have possibly not done a Spyderco PM2 review? Well, I was putting it off because I don't have, obviously, a plain, regular Spyderco PM2 here. Don't have one at all. I know. What's wrong with me? I've gotten into knives. Where's my welcome PM2? I mean, you basically get one with the welcome package, right? I wish, but I figure we might as well do one right now. I can still talk about the plain blade shape. I know what the blade shape is. I mean, it's basically very similar to that, just on that, well, kind of similar to that, on that body. I mean, that's a Spyderco knife, so we all know what we're looking at. Just a quick look over this particular one. You got 3.5 inches of blade, which I'm guessing is probably about the same, if not just a tiny bit, maybe, hopefully more on this PM2, regular PM2 model with the leaf-shaped blade. About 8 3/4 overall. Wait, was that 3/4? No, 3/8. 3/8, 8 3/8. That's much, yeah. 4 inches and 7/8. Wow. I'm leading up with the smaller increments for some reason. Quick comparison. I know some people will know what the size of the Spyderco PM2 is, but I imagine some people won't, especially those who prefer budget knives, and I don't blame them whatsoever. I kind of probably should have stayed to budget knives myself, but I'm stupid. So don't do as I do. Do as I say. And don't get into knives. Or watches, or anything. That's the true piece of wisdom. Don't get into anything nowadays. That's how you know, have things. Alright, small Civivi Elementum, full-size Civivi Conspirator. As you can see, the PM2 is unequivocally bigger than both. It is. It's kind of got an arch to it, so it's kind of taller in the open position. It's definitely going to be taller in the closed position, which you'll see in a second. But it's longer, though. It does have almost, actually, it has pretty much exactly the same length of blade as the Civivi Conspirator. Spyderco is not a ratios company. If you're looking for ratios, look elsewhere, because Spyderco doesn't do that. They do not. Cutting edge, the blade length to handle ratios, no, that you're not gonna. It's not gonna be where this is at. And as we all pretty much have guessed and seen, Spydercos are extremely tall. Even with the flipper tab at its apex, the Spyderco PM2 here, which should be the same as a regular PM2 in that regard, is taller than the Conspirator. It is a giant hump in the pocket. I mean, they do have some models that have considerably less hump, so that could be a thing if that's what interests you, but it is what it is. Grip length. The Spyderco PM2 is interesting. The grip length is, to get a really good grip, you're basically stuck in at 1 3/4 double-A battery in your basic position, which is actually less than some knives, but you can definitely still get a pretty solid grip by gripping your pinky around the edge with 2 double-A batteries. And, of course, you have the forward finger choil offering you up, more than enough room. I mean, I can get my fingers just in here reasonably comfortably. But it's a little bit odd. Everything about this knife is a little bit odd, in my opinion. I know people love Spyderco, and I know they love the PM2, and I'm not saying it's a bad knife. It's not. It is not. It's just, everything is a little bit odd, in my personal opinion and view of it. Maybe that's just my take. Let me know your thoughts. 450 thousandths. It's not particularly thick in width, at least. Blade stock is 145 thousandths. That's reasonably thick. That is decently thick. Now, the regular PM2 is a fully flat ground, just like this. Fully flat ground blade, where the grind starts at the top, goes all the way down. So they can compensate for the thickness. This one has a very low saber height grind on it, this Tonto variant. As a result, the Tonto variant, even with a hollow grind on there, which could probably have been a bit thinner, honestly, the Tonto variant with the hollow grind is still 22 thousandths, 21, 22 thousandths behind the edge. It's pretty thick. It is. It's got a decently high edge bevel, so I don't know if it's probably 20 degrees behind the edge, or 20 degrees per side for the edge bevel, but it's thick. And this is not hollow ground up here, so it's flat, so it's going to be even thicker. Honestly, this is probably not your optimal variant unless you're leaning more into the tactical end of Spyderco, which, I mean, this is called the PM2. The original one was the paramilitary. This is what this was based off of. I mean, it was meant to be a tactical sort of knife. So if you're leaning into that end of things, that's fine, but the base version with the leaf-shaped blade would probably be better just as a general use knife. This one is thick. I do like the kind of overall look of the blade. The shape of the blade's kind of interesting with the Tonto variant. That's why when I saw this one come up, I grabbed it. Though this is a factory seconds, so it's got a few little quirks. I just wanted to get this knife in hand and see what the fuss was about as far as the PM2 goes, and because I thought the blade shape was interesting. Not that my reasoning is anything important here. Hardware, T8, and I believe the pivots are supposed to be T10. All right, let's see. There's a T10 right there. T10. I think that's one of the wonky things. The way this particular screw has been tooled, the T10 doesn't fit in it. So one side of mine is a T9. It actually does work with a T9, though T9 grabs just fine. And one side's a T10. That's probably one of the reasons why it's got this little mark as a factory second. The other reason, it's got a tiny bit of up and down play. No side to side. No, just a tiny bit of up and down. For those two reasons are probably what, and it's mostly centered. Yeah. Oh, actually, it needs a little tiny bit of tightening. Tightening. In fact, the T8 even gripped on the side that the T9 fits in. All right. Oh, wait. Where is my scale? 4.18 ounces. It's not a particularly heavy knife. It's not an ounce an inch. Like I said, Spyderco is not your ratios company, but it's not a heavy knife. It's perfectly reasonable in the hand. All right, so now that we've gotten all the specs out of the way, let's just take a quick talk about Spyderco and the PM2 and stuff like that. Blade shape, fine. It can be a very good cutter because it's got that full flat grind, even if it's not necessarily the thinnest of knives behind the edge. The normal variant comes down to being pretty reasonable behind the edge, and the geometry makes it a cutter. It's a good shape. It typically standard comes in S30V blade steel. Though, of course, Spyderco does... The Spyderco model is, instead of putting out a bunch of different types of knives, it's to re-release and sprint run limited variants of the knives they've already do. I think they do this a little too much. But Spyderco is a big fan base, and people eat them up for whatever reason. More often, I think, than not. And occasionally you see one that comes out that's interesting. But for the most part, it's like, oh, do I really care that this is being sprint released in Magna Cut or 15V, or every other possible steel imaginable, with maybe micarta scales, or something. I personally don't. I'd prefer getting different knives. Part of what I enjoy about the knives is the wide range of things you can find, right? None of these are similar. I don't necessarily want 10 PM2s. It's just not the way I like to collect things. But some people, I know, I mean, case knives are collectible and they have a lot of the same patterns. It's just to each their own. No problems there. Do what you want to do. Have your fun with your collection and your hobby. That's the important part, right? So, regularly, pretty good geometry despite somewhat thicker blade stock. I've noticed that a lot of American companies use pretty thick blade stock. I wonder why that is. I wonder if there's a certain philosophy behind that that I'm just unaware of. Well, no, I mean, Benchmade doesn't. Benchmade has other issues, but we'll just leave that there. Obviously, this is a Tonto with a straight edge, and obviously a decent amount of your actual blade is being eaten up by choil here. That's the case with most, if not all, Spydercos. Well, not all. They have a few ones that aren't quite like that, like the giant Subvert. That thing doesn't really fall into that, but that's a collaboration. It's a whole different thing. Plunge grind on Spydercos, they do a really good plunge grind. It drops almost straight down or very nearly straight down. You can definitely cut in a sharpening choil on pretty much any Spyderco. This is an example of one that does not quite drop straight down. There is, in fact, space between there, but this is a Chinese-made one. The US-made ones are not going to be that way. They drop almost straight down, and the edge termination here is right. Actually, the edge termination doesn't quite hit the plunge grind on this one. You can definitely cut in a sharpening choil if you feel the need to, or if you're really careful, you could probably just sharpen right to that. And you will likely not have a problem with a smile. So yeah, the way they did their edges is good, and it takes into consideration some of the problems that can be caused with bad plunge grinds. Appreciate that. Always appreciate that. They have quite a lot of aggressive jimping up here. This is definitely something that grips you in back and will 100% increase even further in gloves. This is a very grippy handle knife, especially with the jimping. That's quite... the jimping on the Spydercos are very interesting. It's very deep and almost sharp, but whatever they've done to the very apex is just enough that it's not, like, uncomfortable to interact with. They've done a really good job to get really effective jimping. Is it a little more aggressive than it necessarily needs to be? For some knives, sure, but for this one, the way it sits, yeah, no, it's very well thought out. A lot of this knife is very well thought out. There are a few things that I don't think are, but overall, it's popular, so what do I know, right? Moving on, the blade, this PM2 is on phosphor bronze washers. They are not on bearings. I know some Spydercos are on bearing, but for the most part, I think for the vast majority, they're not on bearings. You're probably looking more into the small batch collab, like weirded ones, super weird ones that would be on bearings. G10 scales, these are the stock standard ones. They are very grippy G10. This is meant to be in your hand. Again, I think military application here. They are flat scales, and, well, we'll talk about that when we get to ergos in a minute. So let's just continue. You have 4-position mounting for the pocket clip. Left or right, tip up or tip down, carry, potential. You have steel liners in there. They are milled out a bit. Not like a massive ton, but a decent amount. Enough for some weight reduction. It's kind of ugly in there, but that's kind of what this knife is. Ugly in my... right? And Spydercos are kind of ugly. They operate off of a compression lock. And the compression lock is basically a liner lock, but at the top here on the back, where instead of... well, this is a liner lock. This is your standard liner lock. You got the liner lock, you push it over. When it pops open, it wedges behind the tang of the blade. The compression lock on Spydercos should be a bit stronger than even the standard liner lock because they wedge in between the tang in a slot in between the tang. So you've got a piece of metal wedged in between there. So even though it's got a tiny bit of play on this factory second, it should be very, very solid. And honestly, I think Spyderco's overall QC, I've never really heard of any major issues on their QC from their American-made knives. The, what is it? Taiwan-made knives, some of them, especially the titanium ones, are prone to lockstick. I'm looking at you, Paisan. And the Chinese-made knives are, well, this one was kind of terrible, so I can't give you any guarantees there, but the American-made stuff is pretty good as far as I've heard consistency-wise. And most of their best knives are coming out of the US, with some of their more unique stuff coming out of Taiwan, and just some of their attempt at budget knives, which this is 8CR for what was like $80. Yeah, that's not really a budget knife, so I don't know what that thing is. It just needs to go away. Thankfully, it is discontinued, but they are made in Golden, Colorado. Earth. I skipped the USA and just went to Earth. Golden, Colorado, USA. Branding's here. Got the Spyderco logo here. You got a lot of stuff on this blade. Probably more than you need, but honestly, it's kept as just like little lines and little marks. It's not the most offensive I've ever seen. It's just maybe a bit too much. But if they were just to put the Spyder back here instead, like, I could totally just be fine with this, because it's kind of on the tang, or the ricasso. There is a lanyard tube in most Spydercos that is press fit in there. I know a lot of people don't like that, and I can't say I'm a fan of it. I have taken this knife apart once, and it's press fit in there, and it was a pain in the ass to get apart for the first time. A lot of these can be removed without issue, as far as I know and have seen. So, yeah. Well, maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't remove this thing without issue, because you don't have any other structural things. Like, this one could definitely be removed, because you've got a whole structural setup back here. I don't know. The press fit is kind of annoying. It can make it a little bit difficult to get the scales apart. But it's doable, so, Now we get to what, in my opinion, is both Spyderco's... Oh, just want to say that this one, I don't know if it's because it's a factory second or not, this one is not, like, breaking in very well. It is on... Normally, Spyderco's can be pretty almost drop shutty, but this one has remained for over, like, the 2 years I've had it, pretty stiff in there. Doesn't want to break in a whole lot. So, yeah. Of course, also, the actuation method is, with most Spydercos, the hole. Thumb flick, thumb roll, reverse flick. The hole is Spyderco. In fact, I think, as disturbing as it is, you're not actually allowed to put a perfectly round hole on a knife, because Spyderco has that patented as their opening mechanism. That is, that shouldn't be allowed. I'll just be straight with you. That shouldn't be allowed, just like, Nintendo getting the recent patent for battling with creatures you catch in a ball. Yes, that is a literal patent, or very similarly worded patent to what they actually have. Basically, they've patented the ability to catch what are essentially their Pokemon in a ball and battle with them. And they've got a patent for that for some reason. And yeah, like, certain things are vague enough and bizarre enough that these mechanics, methodologies, different things, just, you can't put a patent on this. You shouldn't be allowed to put a patent on a circle cut into a blade. Maybe this has been amended, but I believe I did hear that that was the case, and that is why Spyderco is the only company that I know that has perfect circles. So, yeah, that's kind of scummy, but whatever. So, moving on to one of the last things I want to talk about, I'm going to combine the clip with the ergos overall. First of all, Spyderco is known for its ergos. Like, you look at this thing and you think, what in the world are they doing just with the squiggles? And I know many people have said, oh, and then you get into hand, and it's like, okay, no, this makes sense. It is super ergonomic. And it is. It fits the hand. It accommodates the hand well. However, the thing that I don't think a lot of people mention, and maybe this is just my hand, this is completely subjective, this could be different for everyone else, so you have to give it a shot for yourself. I'm not saying don't check them out. But I think Spyderco does a number of things on a lot of their models to counteract the very ergonomic nature that they've clearly designed this knife to have. And that is the rather abrupt change in angle. I mean, they have chamfered and softened. There's no hard angles. It's nice to interact with. I would like more companies to do a chamfer like this on their scales to really make them more comfortable. It's a good idea. It's a good execution. However, they've done it in a way where it is so abrupt that it changes to, perpendicular angles almost immediately. So it really emphasizes how flat it is. It's not bad, and by itself, it wouldn't be a problem. However, this clip is also awful. I mean, there is a reason that the Spyderco aftermarket scene is extremely big. And one of those first things a lot of times that people do is change out the clip. For good reason. It's not deep carry. It's not deep carry at all. It's pushing shallow carry. I'd consider like this medium carry, but this is pushing shallow here. It's easy to get out of the pocket. Definitely some area to grip onto. You got the screws to sort of provide some traction. But it's got a flat at the end, which isn't the worst flat at the end I've ever seen, and it doesn't really make it work too much worse. It's just I would prefer continuous rises or like a shallower continuous rise. However, the actual structure of this, normally when they're structured like this, so they have a flat at the back end, it's so your palm hits it and wraps around until the clip almost disappears. However, when you grip down on a Spyderco, while it is relatively comfortable, I still feel their clip more than I do on some other knives that have the similar design philosophy for their clips. You feel some of these angles on this knife. And when you're feeling angles there, it sort of, to me, it brings the abruptness of some of the angles more to the forefront. That again, this is completely subjective. But when I go up here, I'm just like on this clip and it's just not super comfortable. It's not bad. There's no hot spots in that sense, but I feel it all. So their ergos fight against each other a little bit. Now, if you have big hands, maybe that's not going to be the case. I have, I believe it is from about here to here is about 4 inches, I think. Let's just check. From up top knuckles, my knuckles are... Well, when I squeeze in, I can get down lower, but the actual knuckle themselves are about 3.5, and back here, I'm up to about 4 inches, though it doesn't look it on camera. It does look it on to me in person. Oh no, not quite 4 inches. 3 7/8. Call that. Just about. I don't have huge hands. I have stubby fingers, but I don't have like super tiny knuckles or anything like that. I can squish them in when I do that, but yeah, 3.5 to 3.25, 3 3/4, 3 7/8 ish hands here. So if you have like big 4.5 inch hands or something like that, maybe you'll be different, but stretched up here, yeah, I'm on this clip pretty dramatically, and it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. And back here, I can still definitely feel the clip and everything, more so than you'd think this super ergonomic structure would really be designed for. It's like they've made a good structure here, and then they've maybe not thought out some of the add-ons that were bolted on after the fact. Just my take. So, that said, still a good knife, still USA made, still a company that's doing mostly good stuff. Price-wise, PM2 has remained mostly good. I think the base model PM2 is still in the $185 range. I want to say $180 range. I say that without even bothering to look it up because, again, there's so many variants of every Spyderco knife out there. You can find them at all different kinds of ranges other than typically budget ranges. Lightweight ones with plastic or FRN scales, higher end ones with micarta scales, and I know there's aftermarket titanium scales, but I'm not sure there's ever been a titanium from the factory scale for Spyderco PM2. That's interesting. I guess they really just don't need to with all the aftermarket stuff out there, but and it would just add a lot of price to it. Yeah, I can kind of see why they wouldn't. There's definitely a lot available, and the pricing for the most part on the PM2 is reasonable. They have other models where the pricing isn't quite as reasonable, but the PM2, yeah, it's kind of good for what it is for a USA made production knife. It's pretty affordable and pretty reasonable. It's only really competing with some stuff from like Hogue or Kershaw lately. Heck, the base Benchmade bug out might actually have surpassed the price, which is kind of disturbing considering it's less material, less knife all around, just with an axis, crossbar style lock and plastic scales. But long story short, and I know this was a long one, but let's be honest, the Spyderco 2, PM2, whatever. Well, I'm forgetting what it's called all of a sudden. And dog is an iconic design. It's USA made. It's a good knife, and it's reasonably priced where it is. Hopefully, it doesn't start going up now. Of course, that I've said anything or that anybody said anything. But while recommendable, there are some things that you're going to probably want to do. Namely, possibly swap out that clip for something else. Get some different scales, maybe some contoured or something like that. There's a billion things out there that you can do if you're willing to put in some extra money into it. Also, blade to handle ratio. Not great. Not exactly what I would consider a great, which is kind of a shame because they could definitely get like 1/8 of an inch of blade in there, which would help with those ratios a little bit. But there's a lot to talk about. But that's only because it's a heavy hitter in the industry, right? So I'm going to end things here. Say thank you very, very much for watching. Hopefully you continue or start to have a good day. Hey, maybe watching my videos are the portent for your day to improve. So watch my videos every day and you'll have a better day. That's how it's going to be. Other than that, I think I've said everything that I want to say, so I'm going to end things here and say I'm back. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll continue on. See you later.